Hello, hello, and good morning, all the awesome folks of Dare to Be Great from all over the world. Thank you for joining us. This is the first official day of Dare to Be Great 5, Dare to Be Great 2023. Yesterday was pre-con day. It was an excellent one, and it went super fast. It was crazy. But today we have got another day full of amazing speakers, powerful content, and so much more. And the first speaker kicking it off this morning is Marissa All Moyer, and she's the director, North Carolina Center for Missing Persons, and she's going to be doing a presentation called "Are You There? It's Me." My friend, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. It's 8 o'clock Eastern time, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not getting up that early, but I appreciate everybody joining in. My name is Marissa Allmoyer. I'm with the North Carolina Center for Missing Persons. However, the majority of my career in public safety has been in the comm center. I worked with Troop C Communications in Raleigh, North Carolina for the North Carolina State Highway Patrol for over 10 years before transitioning to this role. And it's funny how this class kind of came about. I was in this Dare to Be Great, I believe 3 or 4, and Hannah Sandy, who is a phenomenal speaker, was doing a class, and one of the comments on the comment in the bar was, I don't believe the number of women primarily who were like, I don't know who I am either. And it just echoed, that sentiment echoed. And I was like, man, wow, there's something here. So I've been rolling this class around for a good while. So we'll get started. Right off the bat, I'm going to make y'all think, and I'm apologizing, but what are the things that you like to do when you're not being useful to someone else? And I know it's early and I'm making you think. So if you can think of anything, let me know. Similar to that, who are you when you're not being useful to other people? A lot of people have a hard time answering that because so much of our careers are service-based. We are being everything for the callers. We are being everything for our road units. We're trying so hard to make sure they have what they need that we don't stop and think about us. A lot of times this looking for yourself, it begins after a significant life event. A breakup, a divorce, a marriage, becoming a parent, that's a huge, huge change for many people. The death or near death of a loved one or one of your field units. Empty nest syndrome, I'm almost there. My boys are 21 and 18. The 18-year-old is making his way out. The 21-year-old moved out already, and it's weird. The transition is weird. And think about this. How many times have you seen these married couples on Facebook who are been together 20 years, 25 years? Their kids all get graduated, they move out. Then what happens? They get a divorce and everyone is shell-shocked. Everyone. The same thing happens with retirement. Retirement is wonky because we build our lives around these people we work with. You figure a third of your life easily is spent with these people that you work with every day and the things that you do every day. And then what happens when you retire? You've lost that sense of community and you've lost that sense of purpose. So I do want y'all to think on this for a minute. Feel free to put it in the chat. You don't have to tell me out loud right now, but I just want you to kind of think about this. So if you had followed your childhood dreams, what would you be? I wanted to be a lawyer when I was younger, and then I was like, I don't want to do that much school. And then the joke was on me because I pretty much put myself through the same amount of time. So I was like, maybe I missed the shift. Maybe I shifted a little bit too hard to the left there. But just kind of think on that for a minute. We'll come back to it. How many of these things sound familiar to y'all? I don't enjoy the things that I used to enjoy. I can't find my motivation. Life just feels kind of meaningless, or I'm just going through the motions. And Mandy answered, and there's a couple questions in the chat about what would you be if you grew up. And nursing school dropout here is Andre. Air traffic controller, a nurse, but Mandy wins it. Mandy said a princess. I think we all wanted to be a princess when we grew up, and it's kind of a disappointment that we're not. But a couple of other things that may sound familiar to y'all. My self-esteem is wrecked. I can't remember a time where I felt happy or excited about life, or I am the only one going through this. And that's just not about our lives in general. Whenever you have a traumatic incident or officer involved incident at work, a lot of us feel like our feelings, we're the only ones feeling those things. I promise you, you're not. You are absolutely not the only one going through this. Why do we feel this way? How did we get here to where we just can't figure out a path of direction? We're not sure what we're doing or where we're going. One reason is the syndrome. Life has just kind of happened to you. You've just gone with the flow. Other people have always made decisions for you, like your parents. You haven't really had to make a lot of decisions on your own. You just kind of go with it. And you go along with those social norms, such as college, marriage, children. When I teach this class in person, I often say, everyone who went to college right out of high school, raise your hand. And probably about a third of the class will raise their hands. And I'll say, now, how many of y'all would do it again? There's like one or two hands. That's it. But that's our norm. That's our norm is we're told you go to school, you get good grades, try to get a scholarship, and as soon as you graduate, you're going to college. So within the span of like 2 days, they go from having to ask to go to the bathroom at school to being able to make decisions that any adult can make. And there's no real transition. So you've drifted along without considering what you actually want to do in your life. And Ricardo came into the chat and said, I'd do it the same way every time. It was hard to go to school while in dispatch, but it was worth it. Absolutely. I tried the college route right after high school, was not very good at it. As an adult, I went back and got my bachelor's degree while I was in the comm center. And it was difficult, but I'm proud of myself that I got it done. But I don't think I would have been as successful if I did it at 18. A lot of times we are just too busy. We play so many different roles. Now think about everything that you do in the course of a day. You're a parent or a guardian, significant other, caretaker, housekeeper, chauffeur, scheduler. You're doing it all. So between work and family and so many other responsibilities, there's no real time to pursue hobbies that provide fulfillment and happiness. What are some of y'all's hobbies? For me, it's kayaking. I absolutely love kayaking. I actually found a way, I have a Ford Fusion. So I found a way to wedge the kayak from the trunk of my car through the back seats and into the front. And the way it wedged up, I didn't have to tie it down. I just had to make sure the trunk lid didn't bounce around too much. But a lot of times I get stressed out at work. I've had a bad day. I'll take the kayak and go out. A really good friend of mine had a traumatic incident at work. And she called me and she said, I need you to meet me. And I said, okay. So we talked after she got off work and she said, I need to go out on the water. And I said, okay, I will go with you tomorrow. We went out there. We didn't talk. We just floated. We just relaxed. And it was so helpful. But a lot of times we don't have that hobby. I didn't discover kayaking until maybe 5 years ago. Before that, I didn't really have any hobbies. And Laurie says kayaking, camping, and fishing. And she's got a Prius. So, Laurie, are you shoving the kayak in the back of the trunk? Camping, boating, fishing is what Dre is saying. I recently got a camper. We haven't taken it out yet, but I'm looking forward to just getting out in nature. But a lot of times your life just ends up being about everyone else and not you. And it's so frustrating and we don't know how to break away from it. A lot of times we have a loss of purpose. If you're going through burnout, you may end up with a loss of purpose because all of those daily mundane tasks, they're just menial, pointless, and redundant. You get up in the morning, you get the kids ready for school, you get their diaper bag ready, you drop one off at daycare, you drop the other one off at school, you go to work, you pick the other one up from school, you pick the other one up from daycare, you go home and you make dinner, and it's wash, rinse, repeat every single day. So you end up just riding on autopilot. You're just, you got your routine down and you're just doing it without thinking about it. And you can't find that bigger why about what's behind what you're doing. A lot of times we have a lack of social support. There's superficial relationships with little depth. And it's like no one gets how I feel, especially when you become a parent for the first time. That transition from no kids to one kid, that's tough. That is so tough, and I've said this before in other classes. I had postpartum depression after the birth of my first son for 2 years, and it wasn't until I was pregnant with my second son that my doctor caught on to it and was like, "Oh, wait, I think you're depressed." And I was like, "What?" Because I didn't feel sad, I didn't feel down, but I also had a very small circle, and I didn't have any other mom friends who would look at me and go, "Hey, something's not right." We don't have those friends we can call after a hard shift sometimes, or sometimes they're going through it with us. So how can you burden them with your burden where they're burdened already? So we have a hard time with that social support. Cognitive overload, especially my neurodivergent TCs. I'm one. Hannah, Sandy, and I actually did a class yesterday at the TC Symposium in Greensboro in North Carolina about neurodivergence in the comm center. We're so much more prone to the cognitive overload because you've got so much that has to be done for everyone. You're jumping from task to task to task. You just get overwhelmed. And then at the end of the day, when you're like, whew, I finally did everything, you can't fall asleep. And you lay in bed and it races. And you remember everything you were supposed to do. You're making your mental list for the next day and you're not sleeping. There's a difference between sleeping and restful sleeping. And a lot of people aren't getting that good restful sleep, especially when we're working shift work. Part of our shifts was 4-day shifts and then 3 night shifts back to back. Now, it sounds harsh, but it balanced out by getting that same number of days off. So it was rough, but it wasn't because you really had a good chunk of time off. But day 6, day 7, I don't sleep well during the day, so I'm exhausted. I'm sleep deprived. I'm grumpy. I've got cognitive overload. I'm going to work, getting more overloaded. And then when I come home, I can't sleep. And it was really, really frustrating for a very long time until I figured out some things to help make it work. And honestly, it took prescriptions too, because I just could not turn my brain off. A lot of time we make comparisons. Everything on Facebook is not the whole picture. And I want y'all to remember that because it's real easy to post all of the good times and we went here and we did this and everything else. But who's going to post, man, I just really feel like crap right now and I don't know why. Nobody's really going to post that stuff. We see all the high points of everybody else's life. Oh, they just bought a new house. I can't believe they found one to buy in this market. Oh, they just bought a new car with these interest rates. Man, they must be making money. So you look at it and you feel like you don't measure up because you don't have the career. You don't have the family or the home life. Your health may be not so great sometimes. Physical features, we see Facebook is inundated with images of men and women who are in tip-top athletic shape and have worked very hard to get there. And then we look at ourselves, we've hit menopause, we've got that lovely little bit of weight gain, and it's like, man, that's rough. And we compare and we look at financial status and education status. When we make comparisons like that, it can lead to imposter syndrome. And what is imposter syndrome? Now, moment of truth here for me. I still have imposter syndrome sometimes because here's the thing. I transitioned out of the comm center into a true secretarial role with our aviation section before I moved up to the director for Center of Missing Persons. And so it was really difficult for me to feel like I still had a place in the 911 community. And fortunately, and I'm one, there's certain conferences I try to put in for, and I just kind of throw it out there and see what sticks. And so my little plan with God was like, okay, I'm going to throw it out here and see what sticks. And if nothing sticks, then I know I'm done. And I was really sad about it not sticking because I love this community so, so much. But I really struggled with finding my place here. And sure enough, things stuck. The beginning of the comments was one of the APCO members from Montana, where I was lucky enough to be in September, and it was amazing. And this stuck, and I still have a couple other opportunities, and it's really, really cool to see that I'm still, I guess valid would be the word, but imposter syndrome, it just comes back to where you don't feel like you are worthy of your success. And Heather said it's a crappy little demon that lives in my head rent free. That is it. That is absolutely it. Because it's like, you know what? Anybody else could be doing this. I'm not special. Anybody else could be doing this. I just worked really hard and I was lucky, and I'm a fraud. I'm a fraud because this just happened to me. I didn't do anything to deserve it. That imposter syndrome is so difficult to overcome sometimes. And we'll talk about some strategies for that later on in the class. But it is a big, big thing. And a lot of people, especially as they move up when they go into a supervisory position, they deal with imposter syndrome as well. And it's tough. And we're not talking about it a whole lot, but we should be. And I'm going to step on somebody's toes, and I'm sorry if I do, but no, I'm not sorry. Sometimes, and I'm not saying these things that you say it every once in a while, because we all have shit days, honestly. We all have days where, like, you know what? I just need a break. I just need my car to quit messing up. I just need the water leak to quit leaking. What else? Like, we all get those frustrations. But when you come into things in your life and you keep seeing the same response, the world is against you, nothing works in your favor. Of course, this always happens to me. I just can't catch a break. Your mindset in these situations is a big thing, and it's a big factor. So don't let that victim mentality overtake you. So if you find yourself saying this a lot, maybe it's you. Maybe you need to kind of check that a little bit. So now that I've stepped on your toes, what do we do about it? Acknowledge and accept. Feeling lost can honestly make you feel like you're behind everyone else. It really does. We're comparing to other people. We have imposter syndrome. And it's like no one else is going through this identity crisis. And you know what? At 20 years, 30 years into my career, I should be more successful. The coulda, woulda, shouldas will ruin your thought processes if you let them. Don't just stuff those feelings down deeper. We compartmentalize a lot. We know we have feelings we need to feel, but we put them in a little box and we put them on the shelf and we go, I'm not ready to touch that right now. When I'm ready to touch it, I'll deal with it. Well, eventually you're going to keep shoving, and that box is going to, and you have to be mindful of that. And you have to really take a good look at your life and go, okay, you know what? I'm not quite happy, and maybe I need to change something. Now, please do not go home and tell your spouse that I said y'all should get a divorce. Please do not go back to work and put in your 2 weeks notice and tell them that I said you should quit your job. I will never advocate for someone to leave a center when it's a good place for them to be. However, there may be times where the different auras and the different flows of the different comm centers may be a better fit for you. You may need to take a good look at your relationships and really think, okay, is this healthy? Is this good for me? And I don't mean just romantic relationships. I mean all of your platonic relationships that you have. Laramie, you are not allowed to quit, period. Laramie's in the chat and he says, authority of Marissa, I quit. No. Please don't do that. But sometimes you do need to reevaluate some things in your life and go, what can I change and what needs to change? That's the biggest thing. So first, you're going to look at your life in review. Walk down memory lane. It makes you remember the things that you were truly happy about and the things that you gained from working hard through hard times in your lives. Create a timeline and then write down those good events and those bad events. Now, I'm going to tell you that's not always fun, but take a look and see if it was positive or negative, meaning you can have something bad happen to you and still gain good from it. It's all about the silver lining. What about it made you happy, or what resulted? What did you learn? What did you gain from these experiences? And did this give you knowledge that you can use to help others? So two things. One, several years ago, I left a toxic relationship. And looking back, of course, I can see all the red flags. But coming through it and everything that happened after that, it really gave me a different mindset on how I approached relationships. So yeah, it was bad. It was bad, but I learned, and I actually kind of grew a lot and got some strength from that. Another one of my classes that I do is on domestic violence in the comm center as far as involving first responders. And I was involved in a domestic violence incident well over a decade ago that fit into that criteria, and I held it for a long, long time. But then I realized that we weren't talking about it, and so I made a class, and it was tough. It was really, really tough to work on the intricate parts of that class, and I honestly sat on it for several years, but I've been able to get it out at a few conferences and stuff, and it's a tough topic to talk about, but for me, that was my silver lining because if and the way it came out was I was teaching the class for our state certification, and we were talking about the block on domestic violence, and I had relayed just a small portion. On my break, I had 2 students come up to me and say, "Me too." And one of them said he was a firefighter. We lived right behind the firehouse. When I went to the police department and told them what happened, they said, "What do you want us to do about it? He's our best firefighter." And I said, "What?" And it happens. So those negative experiences, you can find positive things in them and make something good of it. Unhealed trauma. And just as a side note, Erica said, this year's been a year of change. I got rid of a bad relationship and left a job that was not good for me. And sometimes those changes are scary, but man, when you look back, you're like, that was absolutely the right thing for me. Absolutely the right thing. But we end up with some unhealed traumas from our relationships, and not just romantic relationships. You can have unhealed trauma from your childhood, from your peers, from your anybody. And what does it look like? Low self-esteem, codependency. Codependency can be something that's tricky and you don't realize you're actually doing it. I read a book called Codependent No More that was recommended to me as by a friend. And my mind was blown because I didn't think I was codependent, but then I read the book and I realized I was. And I was like, oh, I need to fix this. And so I did some work. Deep insecurity, struggling with boundaries, fear of abandonment, intrusive thoughts, resisting positive change. And then what does trauma blocking look like? It's excessive use of social media and compulsive mindless scrolling. Anybody get on TikTok and just scroll, and the next thing you know, it's like an hour or two later, and you're like, where did the time go? What happened? I've done that before, and I'm like, oh no. Binge drinking every weekend because you're off of work. There's a lot of alcoholism that's in public safety, and we're not talking about it. But it's very common for some people to be completely sober when they're working, and the minute they're off, boy, they're not sober again until they have to go back to work. Excessive and mindless eating, compulsive exercising. They're not going to quit working out until they get abs. They're not going to quit working out until their thighs are under a certain number, things like that. Being uncomfortable, being alone, staying in a toxic relationship after their expiration date. That's tough. But when you decide that you're ready to leave that, it makes a difference in your life after that. There's a feeling of being uncomfortable if you have nothing to do and you always have to have projects to do. If you can't stay not busy, like if you always have to be busy and you always have to do stuff, it could be anxiety, it could be unhealed trauma. There's a lot of different reasons, because when you sit down and you get still, your brain starts talking, you don't want to hear it. So you're like, I'm just going to go stay busy and think about something else. Compulsive online shopping for things that you do not need and going into debt. How many of y'all got Amazon packages yesterday? I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just saying, if you have one every day, and it's Christmas time, that's my excuse right now. But outside of that, it's a little different. Or becoming a workaholic and having poor boundaries at work, including being available 24/7. With my position now, I'm on call 24/7. And there are times where I ask someone to take the calls for me because I just need a break from being tied to the phone. I just need to be able to sit down and relax and not have to worry about the phone ringing or oversleeping and not hearing someone call and things like that. Everyone needs time that they absolutely say, I'm not going to be available for work right now because I need this time for me. I'm not saying never take overtime, but I am saying if you're going to go ahead and try to find balance, then Can't be available all the time. You got to have your space. So, how do we plan for progress? All right. What would your occupation be if you followed your dreams? Remember, I asked about that earlier. Can you make it compatible with your life now? I don't know if we can make the princess thing compatible with us, but if anyone knows somebody, let me know. Just throwing that out there. But make a list of your goals and dreams. And sometimes it's not, you don't have to have big, huge goals. Sometimes it's just, you know what? I want to do this one thing. And how do I get there? What's something you've always wanted to try? For me, it's skydiving, and I'm terrified of heights, but I don't know why I want to jump out of a perfectly good plane. I may not ever do that. But you can also start a bucket list. But if you go back to how can you make it compatible now? Think about that. It's never too late to try to find some way to make it work. Another part of this is accepting yourself, even the parts you hate and even the parts you hide. And that is one of the most difficult things for humans, is to actually love yourself. And one of the things that I heard a long time ago was, what if someone said to your best friend the things that you say to yourself? How would you feel? And I was like, ooh. And I was like, okay, point taken. Start looking at where you can take your control of your decisions. And Jason earlier said, I had just gotten divorced and I'm working on me slowly, but I'm trying to get better. Divorce under any circumstance, like, it's not always easy to go through. Even if you're done, there's still some emotional attachment at some point. Divorce is not an easy thing. It's not. But to find yourself out of that and to reemerge as something new and different and more satisfied with who you are, that's a good thing. And you've got to accept yourself and take control of your decisions and understand this. And this was a topic in a group I was in on Facebook this morning. As we get older, not everyone's going to like you. And that's okay, because you know what? I don't always like everybody. There's a difference between professional relationships and personal relationships. I can like you as a person and not like you as an employee. I can not like you as a person, but you could be a great TC and I'll work any console with you and it doesn't hurt my feelings. The part where we think everybody has to like everybody, we're done with that part in our life. Understand that sometimes you're just not going to get along, and that's okay. No harm, no foul. And then take the time to forgive yourself and others. When you leave relationships that are not good for you, there's a lot of conflicting feelings. It doesn't mean, when you forgive, it doesn't mean you forgot. Because you're not going to forget. You're just not. My brain's not going to forget. But I did learn a lesson. And when talking to a friend of mine, and, she was like, there's always I don't understand why you just can't get over it. And I'm like, get over it. You don't know what he did to me, that outrage. And she looked at me one day and she said, you didn't deserve that. When I tell you, it was like something unlocked in me. It was a release. And I was just like, I didn't deserve that. But I didn't recognize what it was that was holding me back until someone else said it. So if you are still finding your healing after a relationship, I want you to take these two things to heart. You didn't deserve that. And I just lost the second one. Oh my God, I was thinking about this. It just slipped my mind. But you didn't deserve that. Just think about that. You didn't deserve that. Imposter syndrome. So it's not always easy to cope with this, but know the signs. Recognize when you're starting to feel those feelings. For me, sometimes I nitpick my clothes. I feel like I'm not professional enough, and I have to stop and back up myself, and I have to go, that you're fine. You are dressed appropriately. It has nothing to do with your physical appearance. You're confident. Let go of the perfectionism. We want to be perfectionists. We want to not mess up, but we're going to. We're human. We're going to make errors. If you have a mentor or a manager, talk to them. Mentorship is a big thing in our field and something that I hope it grows. Connie Garten, she's retired Highway Patrol. She was talking yesterday about your career path, and if you can find a mentor, maybe they've had imposter syndrome. Maybe they've felt that way before. No, you're not alone. Obviously, we're not alone, and it feels that way sometimes, but there's so many people who popped up in this chat and we're like, yep, he's living in my head rent free. I'm going to start asking for rent. Be kind to yourself. We are great at being kind to other people and giving other people grace. Are we really good with giving that to ourselves? So be kind to yourself. Say yes to opportunities, even if they scare you. Because here's the thing, if it works out for you, it was meant for you. If it doesn't work out for you, okay, but what did you learn from the process? When you go to get a supervisor position at work and you don't get it, did you get the experience from that interview? So if you decide to go for it again, you've got a leg up because you've already been through the interview process once. When you look at a job that you think there's no way I am fit for this, but everyone else is saying, no, you're good for this. You're outnumbered. Say yes to the opportunities. Learn the difference between humility and fear. We can be humble, but we can't let fear keep us from progressing forward. Track your successes. One thing I learned very early on was keep a running tab, a transcript of your training. Every class that you do and everything else. For one, liability side, if you're ever called into court and they're like, well, what training have you had? Oh, hold on, print, there's that. The other part of that is sometimes when you're working steadily trying to reach a goal and you're getting and you're knocking these things out, you lose sight of how much you've actually grown. Because you're always looking forward, as you should be. You don't take time and really look at all the certifications you've gotten and all the trainings you've done and when you look at that compounded and put together, you're like, okay, maybe there is something here. Maybe there is a reason why all of these people are telling me to say yes to this opportunity, and embrace the feeling. This one is tough for me. I took this position 6 months ago as director of the Center for Missing Persons. This is the first time I have really used this title. Usually I would just say I'm with the Highway Patrol. Prior to this morning when Ricardo fixed it for me, it said CTO, which I'm still in the comm center on an overtime basis, but it's only maybe 1 or 2 shifts a month here and there. But I hadn't fully embraced my position. And I was like, ugh. So embrace it. It's yours. It was given to you for a reason. You feel that way for a reason. People are supporting you for a reason. Sit down, think about it, and allow them to love on you. Allow them to support you and to be supportive of you. When we go back to what will we be as a kid, what are you good at? What are you passionate about? It doesn't always have to be paid work. It could be volunteer. So you wanted to be a flight medic when you got older. Okay. Could you volunteer as an EMT? Are there positions within aviation? Like if you can't do that, what can you do? Can you volunteer at a domestic violence shelter? If you wanted to be a vet, can you volunteer at a pet shelter? So a lot of people think that their calling in life has to be paid. And there are times where your calling absolutely does line up with what you're good at and what you're passionate about. It absolutely does. But there are sometimes that, maybe it's volunteer work. It gives you a hobby. It gives you something to do. It gets you out of the house. It keeps you from feeling isolated. And it makes you feel like you're giving back to something bigger than just yourself. So understand that your calling is not always your job, although they can intersect. Again, with the mentor, it doesn't have to be a personal relationship. I feel like it's better when it's somebody that you can know and trust and speak to on a regular basis. But sometimes you can find someone you admire and study them. And I'm not saying stalk them. There's a difference between studying and stalking. Okay. Stalking, there's charges pressed, but don't let it get that far. But you can study them and look at what they do and how they do things, and then develop those skills that you have or behaviors that you admire. So you can say, you know what, I really like, for instance, Hannah Sandy, the way she interacts with people is she's a light. She is an absolute light. And she is always so positive and so open. And like, she's got the biggest smile you will ever see. And so I look at Hannah and I really try to change my approach to people. I have RBF, and so I have to really, really work on my facial expressions. They are loud sometimes. I've been in conversations before where in my head I'm going, fix your face, fix your face, fix your face. But I see how Hannah reacts and how she walks in and she's a light. And for me, I'm like, I want to be perceived positively. I don't want the RBF to win, but she's so beautiful. And so that was one of the things that I admired about her. So now I'm trying to change my mindset to where I'm not having to tell myself to fix my face so much. I'm projecting that happiness that I really do feel. It just, the face gets in the way sometimes. And you know, Laura and Mandy and Terry and Steve and they're like, yeah, same. And Andre, I don't know Hannah, but I want to be like her. She's amazing, absolutely amazing. She was on Dare to Be Great 3 or 4, but she's a light. I absolutely love her. Connect with your inner self. So we've all heard, if you got everything on your head, write down a list and then you can go to bed. That doesn't always work. I'm going to be honest with you, it doesn't always work. However, sometimes journaling, and not just writing a list, journaling can help you quiet down the chaos and noise inside your head. They have digital ones, they have written ones. I'm old apparently because I prefer paper. Like, give me a book and paper. But they do have digital that you can do. And there's some journals, and this is one thing. So when I left the toxic relationship, I took a period of 6 months where I did not entertain anyone of the opposite sex or the same sex. I was like, I'm not dating anybody. I'm not doing anything. One of the things I do is I wanted to journal, and I found a journal that had prompts, and it was actually given to me by by Connie, and it helped so much because I knew I needed to get it out, but I didn't know how, and I didn't know where, and I didn't know why. So the prompt gave me something to think about and helped me formulate my thoughts. And I did one journal entry a day for a good while. And it really did just kind of help focus me. And Carrie says journaling's the best for self-awareness. And absolutely. The more we grow in self-awareness, it's rough, but at the same token, it's really, really great because it really makes you take a good hard look at yourself and go, ooh, I need to fix that. Self-awareness. So I don't know if anyone can see the graphic on the left. And when I teach this in the main classes, it doesn't always show it very well, but I could not find this anywhere else. But your internal self-awareness. You may not be able to say these with your chest, but let them sit in your self-conscious. Give them a little bit of time to work out in the background. I know who I am. I know what I want and need. My values are clear. I am willing to brave the discomfort of self-reflection. That one, it is so uncomfortable. It is so uncomfortable, but you got to work through it. And then I increase the likelihood of making choices I am happy with. You may not be able to say those with your chest, but that self-awareness and how you see yourself is so important to finding a happier you. Connect with yourself, reestablish your choice of religion, or explore another religion that best fits your individual preferences. And then attend some inspirational events. There are millions and millions of different religions and things like that. Find one that works for you. And it says make time for prayer, but also this includes meditation. So doctors have found that when you pray, and I'm going to include meditation because I feel like it's the same thing, your heart rate goes down, your blood pressure goes down, your breathing regulates. Now, if you think about when we are our healthiest, It's when our blood pressure is in a good range, our heart rate is in a good range, and our respirations are in a good range. In addition, it increases your empathy. I sometimes have a tendency to be a judgy McJudgerson. That's what I call myself when I look at people and I make judgments and I'm like, and I've had to catch myself on that. So one of the things that I have prayed for was, hey, change my thought process on this. And what I have found was now when I look at something that I would have previous been judgy McJudgerson on, I have a different mindset and I have empathy instead of judgment. It builds your relationships. It exercises your spirituality. The only way you can grow it is to grow it. And it can improve your emotional health. Affirmations. Cassie Sexton did a class in Montana that I was able to watch when I was there. And she said, excuse me, that one of her therapists had made her put an affirmation on the mirror every day. And she was to read it. And she didn't like it. She thought it was stupid. So she gave her another one. And she didn't like it. And she thought it was stupid. And she gave her another one. And she didn't like it. And she thought it was stupid. And she quit doing it. And she noticed a shift in her mindset. And she immediately went back to doing the affirmations, and they make all the difference in the world for her. She was absolutely an amazing speaker. And Mandy says they do daily affirmations on their shift at work. That's super cool too. It may seem weird or stupid, or I don't want to do this at first, but just remember, it does make a difference, especially for people who are struggling in their mental health and trying to find their way. So affirmations actually do help. This one was really big on TikTok and Facebook a little while ago. And so when I was in the process of making this class, I absolutely had to include this. So the general gist of things was people were reading this and they noticed things started happening to them. They got a promotion at work. They got some unexpected money. They had a really good day. And I think part of this is not necessarily manifesting things to happen to you. I think it's more or less changing your mindset. Because when you look for the bad, what do you find? You find the bad. When you look for the good, what do you find? You find the good. So I really, really liked this lucky girl syndrome. Do what makes you happy. Within reason. Within reason. Please do not go off the rails this weekend and tell everybody that I told you to do it. Okay? But sometimes a good book and a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or a cup of hot cocoa. I am a nerd, and if I find a book I love, I will sit there and finish it in one reading. Like, I don't do anything else. I just finished the book. I was on a road trip here recently and didn't have to drive. So I took about 2.5 hours and read a book. And then I looked up and I was like, oh, where are we at now? Binge watching your favorite series. There's comfort series. There's series that I'm learning about too. So there's these things called comfort series, and we watch them because they're predictable, because we've seen it before, and it helps with anxiety. It's a thing. And I was like, never thought about it like that. Crafting, coloring. There's a lot of dispatcher-based coloring, adult coloring books. If you haven't tried them, they're really fun. They're really great. I have a couple of them. Even now, I still have some in my office. Sometimes it's just a treatment, like a spa treatment or a bubble bath. So let me tell you about the bubble baths. So I had a friend of mine who was a medic in the middle of COVID, and it was super, super, super stressful. And he found that taking bubble baths de-stressed him. He would get the bubbles. He would put the salts in there. He would light the candles. He had one of the machines that would play the lights on the ceiling and stuff. And that was his way of working through everything that he had gone through that day. And he said it proudly and openly. And I was so impressed with that, because sometimes it's just taking some time away and getting to where no one can bother you. And it makes a difference. I'm a mom. My kids are grown. But understand this, raising kids at any age is hard. Hard. One of my friends last night sent me a text, and she feels like she's failing because the kids aren't doing like they're supposed to. And I'm like, they're teenagers. That's what they do. But it's hard because we don't have somebody who tells us how to mom. The books How many of y'all have kids that you raised by a book because the book was absolutely right every single time? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like that. So at any age, it's hard. Just keep going. It'll get better. And think about this. It's said that it takes 2 years for a TC, a telecommunicator, to really feel confident and seated in their position with training. With training, it still takes them 2 years. And you have somebody who tells you how to do it. 2 years. So why are you expecting yourself to know all the answers and to know how to do everything when there's no training for this? There's none. So just keep that in mind. Yes, Selena was like, why does every child have to be different from each other? My oldest is ADHD textbook. Absolutely ADHD. He is an extrovert, and he is the one that he would disable the parental safety locks on things before I would. My younger one, I tell everybody he's God's apology. Meek, mild, slept through the night, 3 days old, just an introvert, same DNA, two completely different children. And it is hard when they get grown because you still want to be the mom, but you know you can't because you have to give them wings to fly. My 21-year-old moved out just a few months ago. He just turned 21 in October, and our relationship has changed now because I was used to seeing him every day and talking to him every day, and now I talk to him about once a week, and I don't want to bother him because he's a big boy and he's got a big boy job and everything else, but it is hard. It is so, so hard as children grow up and go through the seasons of life. And then Lindsay Girk is on TikTok, and she has this Get Your Pink Back, and I wanted to include this because I feel like it's super important.
I recently learned something I thought I would share and as a parent, and I thought for you too. Not today. Flamingos, both male and female, can actually bring while they're raising their young, and that's because it's an intensive process and much of their food, their chicks. But not quite like yourself, maybe you're feeling a little bit drained. All for your chicks. Flamingo is able to balance on one leg, which should actually be impossible considering normal though. And we will get our pink back. Okay? You'll get your pink back, and you'll get your pink back. Get your pink back. Pink back. Can't wait to get my pink back. Get your pink back. Time to get your pink back. Doing this and creating these did actually get my pink back. So I just want to thank you all.
So in that, she found a purpose. She found something that was important to her. She found a hobby, and it helped her get her pink back. And I think it's really, really, it speaks of so much about, especially in those younger years, when everything you have is raising kids, and you'll get your pink back. And I actually bought one of those t-shirts. I love her as a creator, but I really love that sentiment. Hormones. They're your body's chemical messengers. And let me tell you, and your hormones go wacky, you will feel off. When mine thyroid was first discovered to be more autoimmune, I was sitting in the doctor's office crying, going, I don't know what's wrong with me, but something doesn't feel right. So keep your hormones and go see an endocrinologist. Keep those hormones in check. They affect your growth and metabolism, your sexual function, your reproduction, and your mood. And your mood. As we age, of course, everything changes with our hormones and everything else. Stay on top of it, even if you hate going to the doctor, because it's super important in stabilizing how you feel. Make sure you practice self-care in whatever safe form that looks like. A lot of people feel like, oh, you went to the store today by yourself. That's not self-care. That's not self-care. And these are some of the things that I enjoy for my self-care. Create comfy spaces. This time of year, a lot of bedding is on sale. We spend over a third of our life, roughly, in bed, sleeping. And it should be a place that we look forward to going to. I have a huge, fluffy mattress protector on mine. and it's got the gussets in it so the feathers stay in their own little square. And it's super plush and super comfy, and my bed is pretty and it's comfortable. Create comfy spaces and where you spend your time the most. Make it somewhere you want to be. Use the good china. You guys have heard several times on the internet, there's, why do you wait for a special occasion to use the good china? It sits in the china cabinet and, excuse me, and it never gets used. And they said every day is a special occasion. So for me, what that looks like is burn the candles. You've got the candle that smells really, really good and you're afraid to burn it because then you won't be able to smell it. Burn the candle. Wear the fancy clothes. I like anything shimmery or shining. It's a bad habit of mine. And I have a few dresses and I like them. And when I have the opportunity to wear them, I wear them and I don't care. Take the trip, wear the boots. This is the good china for me, is wear the boots. A few years ago, my second mama, I call her that, it's my mama Shay, she's gifted me a pair of corral boots. If you know anything about corral boots, they're very ornate, they're shiny, they're glittery, they're just gorgeous. And I didn't wear them at first because I didn't want them to get messed up. And I'm like, wait a minute. Use the good china. For me, it's wear the boots. And very often when I teach this class in person, I will wear those boots. Those are the boots. If it's not those boots, it's another pair of boots that they're ornate and I love them. And for me, it's wear the boots because I'm not going to set them on the boot rack the whole time and let the leather rot out. Then what? I haven't enjoyed them. I haven't enjoyed them. So the things that you have, enjoy them. So, few last points. So my love language is acts of service. I'm not going to ask you for help because the points of acts of service is not to have to ask for help, right? And I heard somebody say this and it really turned my head upside down when I was thinking about it. So we don't want to ask for help, but let me ask you a question. Are you asking for help or are you using your resources? We are taught to use our resources in the comm center all the time. Use your resources. You're not asking for help. You're using your resources. Challenge your comfort zone. Challenge yourself to do one thing that's unfamiliar, because what happens is new opportunities develop new skills. I would have never learned to kayak had I not gone out there. Had I not gone out there, I would have never learned that I loved it. I'd have never learned I could wedge that sucker in the trunk of my car and go. But it also helps your brain develop new problem-solving methods. And here's where it's really important for us, I say older folks, but as we get older, our mental faculties decline. So if we can find ways to keep our brain active and engaged, we can actually kind of offset some of that decline. So think about it this way. It's not just about making your body healthy. At this point, we really need to start thinking about making our brain as healthy as possible because we're going to need it still. Like, you can't tap out on me. You still got to stick with me. So we're going to have to exercise it. So challenging yourself can actually make some more problem-solving methods for you. How many times have we pulled off the impossible for our kids, for our coworkers, our jobs, right? We've done this. Man, I can't tell you how many times I have pulled Christmas, I have pulled Santa out of nowhere. We've done it, right? We've all done it. Why aren't we doing it for ourselves? We're worth it. It's not selfish. We can do that for ourselves. You do not need permission to lead your best life, but if you do, here it is. You have permission. Take that with you. And I miss myself, and I'm glad she's coming back. And this is the last anecdote. So in the process of healing from that traumatic relationship, I was talking to a friend, and I just felt like something was missing. Like I've been broken down, and I was putting all my pieces back together, and I'm missing a piece. And I can't figure out what it is or where it went or why it felt that way. And I was like, I just want to feel whole again. I want to feel like myself again. Why do I feel like I'm missing something? And they said to me, maybe that was a piece that was never meant to be there. And I said, oh. And that completely changed my thought process on things. Completely. So as you rebuild yourself, understand you may not feel the way you felt before. It may be different. And if it's missing, maybe it wasn't supposed to be there. This is my information, my email address, my LinkedIn, and my Facebook. If you guys need anything at all, feel free to shoot me an email, shoot me a message. If you email me, just keep in mind my name does have 2 R's and 2 S's in it. But I certainly do appreciate everyone's time coming and sitting in for this class this early in the morning. And I really, really do thank you. And y'all have a great day.
All right. Excellent, excellent work as always, my friend.
Thank you.
Man, that was an excellent way to start this out. I was over here. You were talking about, journaling and everything, and I was writing down all of my notes and stuff too. This was awesome. And also for everyone who is watching and listening and everything right now, um, Marissa is also over on the Within the Trenches media community where we are all connecting as well. Her information will be posted there too, and the graphic is there as well. So there were no questions that were in here, but everything that you were saying was on point. I mean, you're going to have to come back and look at the comments. I know you were going back and forth and looking as well, but
Yeah.
man, that was super good. One of the things that I love as well that I wrote down here was what you said towards the end was, give yourself permission. I think that's one of the things, one of the reasons too, that because that's what, we're all empaths. We're all here as, to service others and everything else. But when it comes to us, we're like, I'll make it, I'll
Right.
get through or whichever. But I think that's one of the biggest things is we don't give ourselves permission,
Yeah, we don't.
no
No.
matter no matter what it is, whether it be to forgive ourselves or to celebrate our own wins. A lot of times
It's
we
hard to celebrate your own wins because it's
right,
like,
you don't
"Oh,
want to
I
get shamed.
should." Yeah, yeah, but then you're like, sometimes you have to sit back and let yourself be celebrated, and it's hard. It's
Right,
hard sometimes.
exactly. And then the comparison, of others and everything, that is such a downfall, man.
Yeah.
And you're right. The imposter syndromes ends up setting in and everything, but reflection.
Mhm.
Reflection on your own wins, reflection on what you're doing, writing down your wins, all of that stuff. It is all relevant. So thank you so,
Thank
so
you.
very much for starting out this first official day of Dare to Be Great with an excellent message. And man, people are going to be coming back and getting a hold of you as well for more
Absolutely.
of this. So thank you so, so very much. And enjoy the rest of your time with everything that you're doing. Again, an honor to have you as always. And for everyone else, we've got the next session that's going to be coming up around 9:15 a.m. That's Eastern time. That'll be with both Doug and Jill Showalter. This is a gold sponsor vendor session, and their session is called "What is the Secret of Great Training?" We'll show you the Showalter difference. So we will see you all here in just a moment. Thank you again.